Let us delve into Homer's famed tale of Odysseus and Polyphemus, a timeless encounter that continues to captivate us, inviting reflection on cunning, power, and the essence of humanity. This is the sphere of Chronos and Noos, where we wander through time as if through labyrinths, seeking perhaps to find our minotaur, our destiny. In the winding paths of ancient storytelling, where history and myth intertwine inseparably, there are encounters etched indelibly into the collective memory of humanity. One such encounter, weaving like a labyrinth through the centuries, is that of Odysseus and the Cyclops Polyphemus. Yet this meeting is no mere event confined to the past. It is a pattern that repeats in infinite variations, a text that rewrites itself endlessly. And this tale is older than the Greeks themselves, perhaps stretching back to the Golden Age, a time when gods and mortals walked side by side. The story is told in every corner of the world, each culture weaving its own thread into the eternal tapestry of this myth. In the icy realms of the north, the Norse tell of Thor, the thunder god, who faces the giant Skrymir, a being so vast that Thor mistakes his glove for a haul. Like Odysseus, Thor relies on wit and strength, yet the giant's illusions humble him, teaching that not all battles are won by force. In the deserts of Arabia, the cunning hero Sinbad the sailor encounters monstrous beings on his voyages, echoing the struggle between human ingenuity and primal terror. In the forests of West Africa, the trickster Anansi, the spider, outsmarts giants and gods alike, proving that even the smallest can triumph through cleverness. And in the Americas, the Navajo speak of the hero twins, who confront Itzo, a monstrous giant, in a tale of bravery and resourcefulness that mirrors Odysseus's encounter with Polyphemus. Perhaps the story itself is older than humanity, a primordial echo from a time before words, when myths were born in the flickering light of the first fires. It is a story meant to teach, to amuse, to make us shudder, and to remind us of the eternal dance between chaos and order, between the monstrous and the human. It is a labyrinth we enter again and again, each time emerging with new lessons, new fears, and new wonders. For the tale of Odysseus and Polyphemus is not just a story. It is a mirror, a teacher, and a companion, guiding us through the endless corridors of our own existence. Who was the Cyclops Polyphemus? Polyphemus was a son of Poseidon, born from the wild force of the sea. His mother, the nymph Thoosa, brought him into the world on steep shores, where waves crashed against the rocks and the sky hung heavy over the waters. From her, he inherited the power of the wilderness, the mountains, forests, and valleys. His form was vast, his hands strong as storm surges, his voice a rumble like the waves breaking upon cliffs. The sheep followed him, gentle creatures unafraid of his untamed presence. For despite his strength, he was not only a being of destruction. He was as naive as a child and cared deeply for his animals. Cyclopes were beings of immense size and strength, their single, unblinking eye granting them a vision unlike that of mortals. They were creatures of raw power, forged from the forces of the world itself, some born from the sea's fury, others from the depths of the earth. Before the Cyclopes of Polyphemus' kind, there were three who shaped the very fabric of existence: Brontes, Steropes, and Argesh. These elder Cyclopes, sons of Gaia and Uranus, were not shepherds nor wanderers but blacksmiths of the divine, crafting thunder and lightning for the gods. But that is another story, one we shall encounter as we journey through the spheres of Chronos and Noos. Odysseus, the famed king of Ithaka, was a hero of unmatched cunning, his mind as sharp as any blade. His name became legend not only for his deeds in war but for the long and agonizing journey that bore it, the Odyssey, a voyage of endless trials and lost years. Through storm and sorrow, through God's wrath and mortal strife, he fought to return home, his heart ever bound to Ithaka. We will not linger too long on his tale, for Odysseus appears time and again in the spheres of Chronos and Noos, woven into the very fabric of fate. But now, our path leads to a single moment, his fateful meeting with Polyphemus. The name Polyphemus means much spoken of or famous, yet in his encounter with Odysseus, the man whose name signifies trouble or pain giver, it is irony that reigns. For though the Cyclops is mighty, it is Odysseus' cunning that ensures his own name will be remembered, while Polyphemus' fate is sealed in blindness and loss. But we do not wish to get ahead of ourselves. Let us first step into the shadows of his cave. Through the shifting tides of fate, Odysseus and his men came upon an island of jagged cliffs and rolling pastures, where sheep wandered freely, their wool thick with the scent of salt and earth. Driven by hunger and the ceaseless pull of curiosity, they found a vast cave, its entrance yawning like the mouth of some sleeping beast. Within, they discovered abundance. Great wheels of cheese, vessels of milk, and pens filled with the flock of a shepherd unseen. But the shepherd was no ordinary man. As the sun dipped beneath the waves, the earth trembled beneath the steps of Polyphemus. He filled the cave's entrance like a living mountain, his single eye gleaming in the dim firelight. With the weight of the world in his hands, he sealed the entrance with a boulder no mortal could hope to move. At first, he cared little for the strangers in his home. He tended to his flock, the creatures that knew his gentler nature. But then, his gaze fell upon the men. His voice, deep as the ocean's depths, demanded to know who they were. Odysseus, ever the weaver of words, spoke of their journey, of the god's will, but Polyphemus had no patience for talk. With a brutal hand, he seized two of the crew, dashed them against the stone, and devoured them before the others' horrified eyes. Odysseus' heart burned with fury. That night, as the Cyclops lay in slumber, his breath heavy with the scent of flesh and wine, Odysseus gripped his sword. The fire cast flickering shadows across the giant's face, and for a moment, the king of Ithaka imagined plunging the blade into that vast, unguarded heart. But then the cold hand of reason clutched his wrist. If Polyphemus died, they would be entombed within this cave forever, prisoners of their own vengeance. So he turned from wrath to guile. A plan took shape, clear as the stars beyond the cave's mouth. When the next night came, he offered Polyphemus wine, dark and heady, a gift fit for the gods themselves. The Cyclops drank deeply, laughter rumbling from his chest, and in his drunken haze, he asked Odysseus his name. Udes, the hero answered, nobody, and Polyphemus laughed again, his mind slipping into darkness. Then came the strike. A great wooden stake, sharpened to a deadly point, was thrust into the sleeping giant's eye. The cave shook with his scream, a sound that cracked the night in two. He reached blindly, groping for his tormentors, but they scattered like whispers in the wind. His cries carried beyond the cave, to his kin in the hills, but when they called to him, asking who had wronged him, his answer was his undoing. Nobody is killing me, and so they left him to his suffering. Blinded but not beaten, Polyphemus groped his way to the cave's entrance, his massive hands blocking any escape. He let his sheep pass, one by one, running his fingers over their backs to catch any fleeing men. But Odysseus was not yet finished. He and his men clung to the bellies of the rams, their bodies hidden beneath thick wool, their breath held as they slipped past the grasp of the wounded giant. And when the last of them reached the shore, when the sea was beneath their feet once more, Odysseus could not resist one final act of defiance. He turned to the shore, to the shadowed figure raging upon the cliffs, and called out his true name. It was not nobody, he cried, but Odysseus of Ithaca who has blinded you. Then the sea rose, and the waves carried them away, as behind them, Polyphemus lifted his hands to the sky and called upon his father's wrath. But that is a tale yet to unfold, as we drift onward through the ever-turning spheres of Chronos and Noos. This famous tale exists in 1,000 forms, as we've already noted, the foolhardy, powerful giant whose strength avails him not, undone by the wits of a hero. But why do we preserve these myths? On the surface, it is due to the art of language, the craft of the rhapsodes who wandered through lands, spinning these tales with the magic of their voices, until others wrote them down and passed them along. Yet, there is more, something deeper that resonates within us. In these stories, we find ourselves not just the gods and monsters, but the very essence of our being. We carry the Odysseus and Polyphemus within us, both the cunning and the brute force. These myths teach us more than mere plot. They reveal our inner selves, our shadows and our darker sides. They warn us, they shape us. For the myths have not survived through the ages because they are good stories. They endure because they are more than that. They are a part of every person. In their depths, the people of old saw more than just fleeting entertainment. They saw the truth of their existence, the eternal struggles of man, the dance between intellect and raw power, the triumphs and the fallbacks of the human spirit. In this way, the myths are not just stories, they are the fabric of what it means to be human. We set aside the historical events, for though we could dedicate an entire cycle of discussions to the various theories surrounding them, tracing the colonization of the Mediterranean, the clashes of rising cultures, and the echoes of real encounters that may have shaped these tales, that is not our path. Instead, we wish to dive into the psychological and artistic expressions of the myth. Beyond dates and conjectures, beyond what may or may not have once been, lies something far more enduring. The way these stories took root in the human soul, how they were shaped, retold, and reimagined across generations. We seek not the ruins of the past, but the living essence of the myth, the forces it awakens within us, the truths it whispers through poetry and song, the reflection it offers of who we are and who we have always been. The cave echoes with the weight of Polyphemus' voice, a voice that rumbles like the shifting earth, heavy with scorn. He calls out to the heavens, yet not in reverence, but in defiance. I fear no gods, he declares, for what is a god to a Cyclops? His kind were born of the primordial forces of sky and sea, and to them the Olympians are distant figures, mere names carried on the wind. The will of Zeus is nothing to him. He needs no law but his own. And in that moment, though his hands could shatter boulders and his breath could shake the air, he is already broken. For the gods do not forgive such arrogance. Yet he is not the only one to fall. As the sea pulls Odysseus away from the island, he is already safe, already victorious. But pride is a whisper in his blood, a voice older than himself, older than kings. He cannot let the story end in silence. He turns to the shore, where the blinded giant stumbles and rages, and he shouts his name into the night. Odysseus of Ithaka, the one who has bested him. And in that instant, his fate is sealed. Hybris, the crime of believing oneself beyond the reach of gods and destiny. It is the flaw that brings blindness, both of the eyes and of the soul. For Polyphemus, it is a literal darkness, a void where sight once ruled. For Odysseus, it is the blindness of foresight, the failure to see how a single word, spoken in triumph, can stretch across the tides and shape the years to come. Polyphemus, though broken, still has his father, the great Poseidon, the shifting god of the sea. And the sea listens. The sea will not forget. A storm begins not with thunder, but with a whisper. And so, with the name of his tormentor burning in his throat, Polyphemus lifts his hands to the sky, calling upon Poseidon, begging for vengeance. If Odysseus is to return home, let it be in suffering. Let him wander, lost and broken. Let the sea twist his path and strip him of his men. Let his victory turn to dust before he can taste it. And the sea god listens. But here lies the final irony. Polyphemus had always known this would come to pass. It was foretold long ago that one named Odysseus would rob him of his sight. And yet, when he thought of his fate, did he not imagine a warrior vast as the heavens, a hero with the strength of a storm? He could see his own doom, and yet, in truth, he was blind to it. The very nature of fate is that we do not recognize it when it stands before us. And are we so different? Do we not carry the same blindness within us, walking paths we believe to be our own, only to find ourselves stumbling toward a destiny we never recognized? We build, we conquer, we challenge the heavens, and all the while we whisper to ourselves that we are untouchable. But the gods do not forget. The sea does not forget, and neither does time. No doubt you who listen, who have followed this tale through the shadows of time, can conjure interpretations far more elegant, more profound than any spoken here. You have met the Cyclops before, perhaps not on a distant island, but in the wilderness of your own soul. Perhaps you have tricked him, slipping past his grasp just as dawn broke. Or perhaps, for a moment, you were caught in the grip of your own wildness, a prisoner of instinct and hunger, only to outwit yourself and find the path forward. Maybe, in some fleeting instant, you understood the deepest truth that to name oneself is to risk destruction, that to remain nobody is sometimes the only way to escape a terrible fate. Odysseus and Polyphemus are not just figures of an ancient song. They are within us, bound together in the same breath. The cunning and the brute force, the wanderer and the one who never leaves his land, the man who sees too late and the one who is blind from the start. And so we turn to the poet. Constantine Cavafy, 1863 to 1933, was a Greek poet known for his reflective and philosophical poetry, often drawing on historical and mythological themes to explore human experience. His poem Ithaka is one of his most famous works, using Odysseus' journey as a metaphor for life itself.
Ithaka, excerpt by Cavafy. As you set out for Ithaka, hope your road is a long one, full of adventure, full of discovery. Laestrygonians, Cyclops, angry Poseidon, don't be afraid of them. You'll never find things like that on your way. As long as you keep your thoughts raised high. As long as a rare excitement stirs your spirit and your body. Laestrygonians, Cyclops, angry Poseidon, you won't encounter them unless you bring them along inside your soul. Unless your soul sets them up in front of you.
Cavafy continues by advising the traveler to cherish the journey rather than fixate solely on the destination. Ithaka, Odysseus' homeland, symbolizes one's ultimate goal, but the true value lies in the experiences along the way. The poem suggests that the monsters and challenges we fear, such as the Cyclops and Poseidon, are not external threats but projections of our own inner struggles. In the end, when one finally reaches Ithaka, they may find that it is not as rich or grand as expected. But this does not matter, for the journey itself has provided wisdom and fulfillment. Cavafy teaches us that the pursuit of knowledge, experience, and personal growth is what truly defines our existence, not the final arrival. We have traveled far across the waves of time, through shadowed caves and echoing prophecies, and it has been a joy to share this journey with you. But every story is richer when more voices join in its telling. We would love to hear your thoughts, your interpretations, your encounters with the Cyclops within. If this tale has stirred something in you, if it has made you see the old myths anew, we would be grateful for a like, for a share, for your presence in this ever-growing odyssey. And if you wish to walk with us further, to sail deeper into the realms of story and meaning, consider subscribing. There are always more worlds to explore, more whispers from the past waiting to be heard. Until then, safe travels through the shifting tides of time, through the sphere of Chronos and Noos.